Welcome, everyone. This is our podcast number 1 for the Madison 350 podcast. My name is Steve Lewis, and I'm here with our new summer intern, Izzy Willette.
Hi there.
We're joined today by Susan Millar, who is a very active leader in 350 for several years now. I thought we'd have a talk about what 350 does and its history and why it's a fun group to be involved with. So Susan, I'll turn it over to you. Maybe you can talk a bit about how 350 Madison came to be.
Yeah, well, 350 Madison started with a very small group of people around 2012 in response to an Earth Day event, which was focused on the requirement to stay for the Earth to be safe for human inhabitants by not increasing parts per million carbon in the atmosphere beyond 350. Hence,
I think we're way beyond that now.
We are, but the name 350 parts per million reminds all of us who are involved in 350 that a core focus of our work as volunteers basically is to work on reducing planet warming gases so that we can reduce that temperature or at least stop it for the time being, and hopefully as soon as we are all able politically and technically get to the point where we're actually bringing it back down from where it is now. I think it's about 412.
Yeah, I know it's well in the 400 teens, something like that.
So we started out as a small group. I wasn't a member then. I became more involved about 4 years ago. And then it's an organization that is part of an international organization, actually, and largely a USA organization, which has a very light touch of control, actually no control, it has a light touch of organizational support for the various chapters of the country. In the last year or so, 350 Madison became one of the top 10 chapters of 350 within the United States. So we're pretty pleased about that. Let's see.
I know when I was looking at organizations to get involved with last year, I tried a few out, and 350 was very organized and seemed more effective than some of the others. So that's what has kept me here. There's a lot of opportunity to keep things going. So I like that.
You're still with us and are becoming a leader yourself by moving into the leadership of this podcast group. The main way in which we're organized is to have what we're calling on-the-ground campaign groups, of which we have 3. One is focusing on getting and stopping the pipelines that are bringing those horrible fracked oil and so on and so forth from Canada down through Wisconsin. So that's our pipelines campaign. That's the oldest campaign, and it's been very effective. We've really had an impact on the various pipeline producers. And then the second group is called the Best and the Fund. And that group also has kind of a national focus, trying to get the large funders such as Chase Morgan Bank to stop funding the industry. They're the worst of all the banks, among others. Of course, we're focusing on all of these resources for getting rid of fossil fuel industry. And then most recently, actually only about a year and a half ago, 2 colleagues and I started what's called the Community Climate Solutions Team, which is our 3rd campaign. And that campaign is taking a different approach than the other 2, which are more, we are taking an activist, aggressive, pretty aggressive approach, both of those do. Whereas the Community Climate Solutions Team is really attempting to help our local governments, in particular cities, to some degree, Dane County, of course, and to some degree also the UW-Madison. And we're trying to help them achieve their climate goals as fast as possible. And so what we're trying to do is think globally in that. And we've found that the cities that we're working with, I'm leading a group that's working with the city of Madison, that a lot of the people who are working within the bureaucracy of the city
only hear from people who are unhappy about something the city's trying to do, or they're pushing their particular thing that they want the city to do,
The special interests.
special interest
MOPs.
kinds of things. And, that's all good. I mean, that's part of the, citizen participatory thing. But there's not very many folks who pay attention to the larger goals that the city's articulated. We came out with a sustainability plan here in Madison in 2011.
A decade ago.
Lots of goals, not much implementation. And so what we're doing is really pushing them on the implementation. And, for example, we work closely with the Plan Commission for the city of Madison. And very frequently we hear them, members of the Plan Commission and the chair of the Plan Commission and so forth, say things like, thank goodness you're there reminding us that we need to keep our bigger goals in mind.
Yep.
So that's what we're doing. We're community activists who are supporting the cities, our cities, and our Dane County government, and trying to help them achieve their goals, which are our goals.
I mean, that's the ideal of citizen activism from my perspective.
Yeah, and it's fun. I mean, we are really learning fast. All of us have a very fast learning curve. Most of us don't know how city government works or county government works until we start looking around, and then suddenly we realize, oh, this is how the sausage is made. And it's pretty interesting, and it's also super interesting to see how just a few voices can have a big impact on these, on both staff and elected people.
Izzy, when you were looking at what to do with your summer, how did you come across 350?
I'd been kind of on the email chain of 350 since my freshman year, my first year living in Madison. And I just met someone at the farmer's market here in Madison that said, you should come to a Line 3 protest. And I did with a couple of my roommates. And I think it was the first time that I felt like I had found a community that was just as concerned about environmental issues. Because I was a freshman in college, I hadn't met a lot of people yet. And I think it was just really refreshing to meet a group that was actually doing really cool work. And I am curious too, Susan, how did you find yourself? You said 4 years ago you came to 350. How did that happen? How did you find 350?
Well, actually, it's probably the same way that you found it. Probably you were talking to Phyllis Hasbrook,
Yes,
who was leading the campaign team focused on pipelines.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew Phyllis from something or other. I don't remember now. I was relatively recently retired from UW-Madison,
Mm-hmm.
and I ran into her someplace, and she was like, "Oh, actually, we could use somebody to help us as a co-coordinator for our work. And I know you do a bunch of organizing stuff." And I was like, "Well, okay." And then one thing led to another, and I was in over my head before I knew it. But what you said is really is important. What I find is that I have a community. This connects me with people your age, people Steve's age, other people who are recently retired, people with kids who are concerned about their future. There's like this gathering of people around what are we going to do and how do we do it, and we're making it happen.
Right.
So it's a very energizing opportunity to get to know people who you share a lot of values with, and by working together, we're actually making a difference. Instead of bringing our hands at home alone, we're actually out there making a difference.
Right.
Yeah, it seems to me that those are the two common reactions to learning more about the climate crisis is to either try to forget it, push it out of your mind, or wring your hands with, I don't know what I'm supposed to do about this. I feel so powerless.
Right.
In a group like 350 here, I think actually makes you feel empowered to, you're not going to change the world, but
Or you might,
right.
a little bit.
Yeah, little pieces at a time.
And sometimes it's not that little. I mean, our voices are actually bigger than we think. I mean, if we say, "Oh, we're little," then maybe we will be little, but we need to think big.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love about this is that there's people like Izzy, and you too, Steve. I mean, you're the generation that really is going to live this. I'm in my 70s. I'm going to be around for a good long while yet, but I'm not going to be here when the shit hits the fan, so to speak.
Right.
So, so to be able to encourage you to get engaged and to become the leaders of the next generation leaders is a huge, huge opportunity for all of us.
Yeah, I think when I was referring to little bits at a time, I meant that, you know, you're not gonna have a huge breakthrough every week.
Not every week,
But
right?
once in a while, you do hit that home run that feels nice. So.
Right, right.
It's also so refreshing, Susan, to hear you talk about. I don't think I was aware how much. Obviously, I'm still pretty new. Just for people listening, I'm pretty new to 350. But hearing how much you guys work with, and the whole organization works with the city, I think is a rare treat and such a, I think maybe representative of Madison as a city as a whole. And yeah, I also just think it's so fun to be in an organization with people of different ages, and connecting on our one common goal is a beautiful thing. Yeah, and I just I'm so excited, but I do wonder, how do we all want to see 350 Madison? I mean, I guess it's been around for almost a decade now. How do we want to see the group moving forward in the next decade, or what would we like to see done?
Well, the pipeline campaign is not going to slow down. It's going to keep working, keep pushing. The Divest and Defund team is going to keep working.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's accelerating. We're starting to go after major state investment
Right.
nations, for example. Another thing that's happened in this, I'll tell you a very interesting story about this. So when the Community Climate Solutions team first got started, we were like, okay, we're going to focus on the cities that have identified climate goals, that Middleton, Fitchburg, Madison, Monona, and then of course working with Dane County, which has fabulous leadership in the area of climate with Kathy Kuntz and Jill Parisi and so forth. And then we started, each of these groups started working. We call them community working groups, doing various things and learning from one another, because we have monthly meetings where we learn from one another. And then things started to happen, which means that we were moving into a larger sphere. So we started writing in kind of an ad hoc fashion to Governor Evers with the governor's task force on climate change. And then we wrote to the Public Service Commission about this, that, or the other thing. And then we began to realize that, gosh, you know, the cities with their plan commissions are hampered by state policy with respect to building codes. Oh dear. So we were like, look, well, suddenly we became aware that to function effectively at the local level, we're going to have to pay more attention to the state level. And so very recently, within the last 6 months, actually, we started another community working group, which we call the State Policy Group, which is helping us, you know, expand our ambit to an even larger space. If we hadn't learned working in the community level, at the city and county level, about the things that we've learned, we wouldn't have realized the importance of the State Policy Group. And so the State Policy Group is just growing. And then another thing that's happened very recently is that we have some very and visionary folks who are starting what we're calling the Greater Madison Area Climate Network, which we're envisioning will be a resource that will help all of the multitude of climate-oriented organizations in this town kind of learn about one another is doing and collaborate with each other so that we're more effective instead of all these different groups running around in their own little silos. So again, these things are emerging by smart, wonderful, committed people learning from one another, and then we just grow. We grow from an enthusiasm and from seeing that we're making a difference.
Yeah, that's another great piece that I suppose is similar among many volunteer groups, but there are very expert people that do something related in their professional career, to others that don't have much background but are just passionate and want to spend time on it, and we all learn together and share our various skills.
Yep.
So,
it's a very, very collaborative organization.
and there's a spot for everyone. We're constantly growing, adding new subgroups depending on interest and need. And
Exactly.
anyone can come and find their place.
Anyone can come and find a place.
and learn and also take leadership. It's a great opportunity to learn how to take leadership.
Yep.
There's so much opportunity to make it.
Yeah, I think the three of us have all benefited from being able to get involved. And I think obviously I'm still pretty new to the organization, but it is really welcoming. And I think it's been fun with Steve talking about all the things we are passionate about. It's really exciting to just come in with different interest levels and different skills and just talk about climate change. How would you guys say is the best way for someone to get involved with 350 Madison, especially now, I guess, with, I'm not going to say it's the end, but we're still definitely in the middle of a pandemic. So,
Well, probably the very easiest thing to do is to go on the 350medicine.org website and click on the, I think it says, it's certainly on Get Involved, and then you can submit your name and so forth, and then you'll get an invitation automatically to our monthly public meetings, which occur at 7 p.m. on the first Monday of the month. And these are all via Zoom. And once you start listening in to these Zoom meetings, you'll begin to understand what the various different campaign groups within 350 Madison are doing, because there's a check-in about all that stuff that happens during those meetings. Plus, there's usually a speaker who interacts with the group of people. There's usually some 70 or 80 people who attend those meetings. It's a great place for a newcomer to kind of get a sense of what this is all about. And then independent of that,
I would add, there's also breakouts at the end, and there's frequently a breakout for first timers, people who are new to 350, where you can learn about the different subgroups and all the different opportunities. So that is a great place for, it's kind of your first step.
Right. And we have a volunteer coordinator who will hook whomever wants to join with the campaign team that they might be most interested in, or with more than one, if you're not quite sure which one would be most right for you. And it goes from there. Also, there's contact information for the different team leaders on the website. So you can learn a lot from the website.
All right, let's wrap it up there. We'll see you guys and for the next episode too, get into some more of these details.
yeah, thanks for the talk, Susan. Thanks, Steve.
See you guys.
This is an open letter from you and me together. Tomorrow's in our hands now. Find the words that matter, say them out loud. I make it up somehow.